Well, good afternoon. I hear my church chimes going, so it is 5 o'clock. And so, Ted, are you ready to lead us?
I am ready, although it's only 4 o'clock, on God's time. You people on fast time, you just love to stay ahead of us all the time. And but I
I'm on
appreciate
Jamboree time.
it. Very good. Well, let's begin with an interfaith prayer as we get going here and have our time together. And Hilding, I didn't ask you this ahead of time. Would you be willing to lead us in an opening prayer, please?
Yes, I'll do what I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, God, for the time that we can serve our youth. Thank you for all the experience that all these leaders will have, that they can come to bear on the National Jamboree. We look forward to being able to serve everyone who comes to Jamboree. And we thank you for your blessings and for your guidance in our lives. In his name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Well, welcome everyone. And it's so good to have you all on here. We have, looks like a pretty good crowd here today. And I see one or two who have not made it to one of our meetings before. So that's great. That's good. In fact, Patrick Bradley, wave at everybody. There you go. Patrick Bradley down there is our youngster on the team. He's the youngest member of our chaplaincy team. And for that reason only, I guess, he is considered my aide to the chief, but it'll give him an opportunity to work in a lot of different areas, but he'll be available as a resource to all of you during the Jamboree, particularly when if we need a particular need for a young set of ears and other needs like that. And so looking forward to, obviously, to him and the rest of you serving with us. I will tell you, I have not come across any key changes in planning and things that we were looking at since our last meeting, but we do just still want to make sure that we've got several different things covered and that everybody's comfortable with several different things. First, I did get an email early last week from the accounting area at the Jamboree saying, hey, here's a list of the folks on the chaplaincy team that need to go ahead and pay up some money for the Jamboree. And of course, that was kind of I guess a tricky aspect to start with, because first they didn't want us paying, now they do want us paying. And so we're back to that stage of them wanting us to pay. And so what I will do, and it'll be a week old, so if you've paid since then or paid some money towards it, what I'll do is I'll blind copy. You'll be blind if you are one that still has some money owed on your Jamboree registration fee. You'll get, by blind copy, an email from me tonight, just as a reminder, say, hey, check your account and see what you owe, and let's see about getting things caught up with that. And the process for doing that, if you'll go to events.scouting.org, and I'll include these instructions in my email, but go to those events, select my events, go to the Jamboree, and then there's a button on there that says, I think it says, or a spot that says registration, and it takes you to payment status or something like that. And I'll step through it once before I put it in the email so that you can see that, and just know that that'll need to be taken care of. And of course, they generally take those payments via credit cards on there, of course. But anyhow, that's a piece of that's the unfun side of dealing with all this and making sure that things are taken care of. Is there any questions about payment and payments of fees and getting those done? All right, very good. Thank you. So that was one item. Then, if you have not gone to the link that Alan has provided for arrival at the Jamboree. I would encourage you to do that. Most of us are coming, of course, at the start. There's a couple folks coming in on session 2, but if you would go to that link and watch that little video clip or whatever it is, and that will let you make sure you understand the process for arrival. Now, I know that we've been in our discussions, or Alan had gotten a note from Adair about some words from LDS about not arriving until the 17th, but that we are not aware of any changes in that regard, and that may have just been something for an LDS team, their program team, or whatever it is. But if we hear any differences on the arrival dates, I mean, we've got most of everybody's travel arrangements are fairly well set, so we know when we're coming. Obviously, if there are changes in your planned arrival time, go on to the website, or go to that, also to that link where it says logging in or registering your arrival and the dates and times. But if you have not also filled that form out, that is certainly also something that we should see about. Everybody should see about for that. And we're working on, the 2 of you who are working on session 2, we have asked about and are trying to get permission for you to come in a day earlier on the 22nd. It just did not make sense to me, and we don't have a good smooth handoff, I don't think, if we've got session 1 people leaving on the 22nd and your replacement in session 2 doesn't arrive till the 23rd. There's no handoff opportunity, that type of thing. So hopefully we'll have a word on that for you two folks fairly soon, and we'll make sure you know about that. It should be in the next day or so where we'll know something about that. Any questions about arrival issues, arrival times? Yes, Adair.
Just to confirm, chaplains arrive on Sunday, the 16th of July.
Yes, if they can. Now, there's 1 or 2 we know cannot get there till the morning of the 17th, but the subcamp chiefs has asked all the subcamp staff to all be there on the 16th. And so, yes, that's when we'd like everybody to get there. But we understand that now, if you're riding with somebody and else, or traveling together, carpooling and whatever, and just cannot get there until the 17th, that's understandable. But our desire, yes, is to have you there on the 16th. And in fact, that way you have that time of the afternoon, evening of the 16th, morning of the 17th, to acquaint yourself with your subcamp staff, to get to know who they are, to do some team building with them, make sure and begin to understand their needs and and how they operate and those types of things, and get a sense of your location, things of that type. And then in the afternoon of the 17th, we'll have a collective session with all of our chaplains meeting with the mental health team to go over some issues that are specific to that in our interactions with them. And then we plan to kind of right immediately after that, while we are all together, then have a separate one of just us. And it'll be a time in the mental health thing, the commissioners will also be there, and it will kind of be segregated out by subcamps and base camps at that meeting, all at one, but kind of all together in one big meeting. But then after that's over, then we'll hang around just as chaplains, and again, kind of be set up or gathered up by subcamps, by base camps, some additional chance to make sure everybody knows who you are, the opportunity then to hand out the items that we'll have for you, make sure you get those, although we may arrange to get those to you as you arrive. We'll work out those logistics as we get there. But that's kind of the general flow of things as you get there. And that's why if you know you cannot be there, by the evening of the 16th, then let us know when we would expect you. And you would want to have already let your subcamp chief know that also, about if you cannot be there by that time, when to expect you. But yes, everybody can be there on the 16th.
Yep. What time are those meetings going to start on Monday?
Alan, do you recall? I think it's at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock somewhere. It's an early afternoon meeting.
1:30 is our meeting with the medical, mental health and commissioners. And then we will have our chaplaincy orientation following that.
That'll be at the Eagle's Nest?
No, that would be probably subcamp D.
Yeah, it's either going to be the Subcamp D Pavilion, I think is where we're going to be. Although, or it's either that or up at Piggott headquarters. But in either case, that location is convenient, kind of centralized for everybody except our guys over in Alpha and Bravo. Y'all have to see if y'all can get in a vehicle and come over and see us over our way that day. And hopefully it won't drag out too long, but if it does, we'll be right there at, maybe we'll eat the early shift at Piggott Dining Hall for dinner that night, kind of together. But we'll make sure you're aware of that location.
And what dining hall is operating that day? All of them?
That day, both dining halls, there are only going to be two dining halls for staff to eat at. There's only two dining halls at the Jamboree, and that is Piggott Dining Hall and Fork in the Road. Piggott Dining Hall will cover everybody in base camp C and D, which is where all the staff in base camp C and D, which is where all of the contingents will be. And then the other one is at Fork in the Road, which is where the rest of the Jamboree staff is located over in A and B, and that location, of course, is also is A and B. If it will help, I'm trying to pull up. Alan, can you screen share me a minute, or how do we do that? I used to know how to do that.
You're muted, Alan.
Yeah, you already have permission. Go ahead.
All right, here we go. All right, so here's our map. It's on your spreadsheet that has all of our listings about where our various chaplains are located, but there's a map embedded in that. By the way, there's also a link for that map down in that spreadsheet where you can drill in and go look closer at the map. But generally, this is the Piggott Jamboree headquarters. This is the D subcamps are right in here. The C subcamps are right in here, and they are blue because that's where contingents are staying. Medical headquarters is up in this area over here, and then Alpha and Bravo over in this area in here. And so the one dining hall here is at Piggott, and the other dining hall is here at Fork in the Road. Now on this day, on the 16th and 17th, and in every day in terms of staff numbers, there's more staff over in this area than there is here because there's staff living here. This is where most of the staff lives. The only staff does not live there is our operations and medical staff. We live over, this medical staff lives in this area or near their base camp medical centers. And then of course, all our chaplains, we live with our subcamp operations group in our various subcamps. And when you arrive at the Jamboree, after you checked in at Ruby Center, you'll be able to drive to your subcamp headquarters, which in your tent will be right next to your subcamp headquarters. In that area, you'll be able to unload your gear and then get it all squared away. But by that night, you'll need to have your vehicle parked over here in the parking areas over here in the Alpha base camp. This is where parking will be, staff parking. And that vehicle is available to you if you have a day off during the Jamboree and want to run into town for something. Not if you have a day. On the day you get scheduled to be off, and it's up to your team and your subcamp to make sure everybody gets a couple of days off scheduled. Then you'd be able to go get your vehicle and go into town or do whatever you'd like to do, as long as you're back before curfew. But that's a long answer to the question of dining hall here and dining hall here. So our Alpha and Bravo chaplains will obviously live over here in Alpha and Bravo. your, I hate to use the word parishioners, but your clients, your customers that you'll take care of, whether it's staff and in your case, it's staff in that area only. They're camped in these areas. You'll be camped in those areas. You'll all eat there. But then all this area in here is going to be program stuff for the Jamboree. We think the Duty, God, and Country booths are going to be in this region right in here. I don't have that confirmed yet. I'll get that confirmed soon, but that's kind of the layout of the Jamboree. So normally you would eat here, you would work here. And then on days when you're not, and particularly during the day for staff camp, you know, you won't have a lot of daytime activity responsibilities. If you're an A3 or B1 chaplain, that's your time to go visit these program areas, take note of the staff working in program areas and make sure everybody seems like they look okay and everybody's doing all right. You know, but otherwise when they'll come back, most of the staff, program staff particularly, come back in here in the evening, and that's when you're liable to discover some pastoral care needs or those types of things. Also then on the 16th, as I mentioned in our last call, I do want you to be, the various faith groups to be thinking about worship services that can be held. I won't call them impromptu. You need to do a little planning for them, but it's quite acceptable to have because there's spots around where a service could be held, because you'll have staff that would like to have a worship time that evening. They've traveled that day. They've gotten there. They've gotten settled in, and we'll make some provisions in the dining hall. Most of the staff will be eating over here at Fork in the Road, and you'll have some posters up say, okay, all Protestants, we're going to meet over here at this spot at 7:00 for a service. The Catholics we're going to have a mass at 7:30, right at this spot of the back end of the outside dining tent by by Fork in the Road. Whatever y'all put together, but you can make plans to do that. Alan has provided us numbers of my faith group with participants, but I don't know if we have that for staff.
Yes, they're on that chart.
Well, they are. Okay, good. I'm sorry. I should have looked at the chart more closely, huh? So anyhow, that there is an opportunity, and particularly catching them after those dinner times. Most of them will have on that day, the 16th, will have, just as us, settling in, getting squared away, and meeting the rest of their program staff. Some of them may even have to go to their program areas and start doing some setting up. But then the rest of them would be in that would not have any additional responsibilities after dinner the evening of the 16th. There are many of the program staff, particularly displaced staff, Duty, God, and Country staff, who do not arrive until the 17th, because they don't have to prepare for contingents coming into camp. They don't interact with participants until the day after we do. We interact with them the day they arrive. Sometimes that's one of our busiest days at some jamborees. But then you'll have a lot of the staff over in B1 and A3 that will arrive on the 17th. Other questions about locations or arrival logistics? Okay, let me flip back to figure out how to unshare my screen now.
I gotcha.
Thank you. I don't drive these things nearly as well as you do.
I could always stop you. I just can't start you.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let me speak one quick thing about about living logistics. I mean, you'll be sleeping in a tent. There'll be a cot provided. There'll be 2 people per tent. Typically, that the other person in the tent with you will be another member of our chaplaincy team within your sub camp. It'll be the tent's big enough, but it doesn't have a lot of furniture other than the cot that's going to be in it. But at least we're getting a tent. Other staff are having to bring their tents, those not living in the sub camps or medical. but I have been shared. All right, I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna share another one, Alan. Here is the design for a little PVC closet contraption, if you will, that can be put together in your tent. You don't glue the joints, you just slide them together, slip joints, and make you a little contraption. Here's another variety of it, maybe a slightly different width. Here are some plans. We will send this out to those of you if you'd like to. I'm going to try to put one together. I'm going to build one next week or this week and send out a picture of it to mine and see if I may have a better set of numberings and links than this particular diagram. But there it is out of PVC, and it can come apart as much as you want to and for travel. And particularly for those of you who are flying in, I'll put this in a note when I send out the charts. If you would like me to have one already cut out and ready to put together in a bag and have it there at the Jamboree for you when you get the Jamboree, you just let me know that, and I should have enough space in my Yukon to bring a few extras up for those of you who are flying in. It might be difficult to fit all of it in your baggage. You'll be tight for baggage space anyway.
So Ted, now that you've made that offer, you're ready to make about 30 of those?
Yeah, if I need to, I can make 30. Listen, I'll get my scout troop over here and we'll go to town on them. We'll get a pile of PVC and we'll start cutting them up. And because I have PVC cutting devices and things like that for when you live on a farm, and you learn how to kind of do a little bit of everything. But yeah, we'll make some of them. I'd be happy to make some for y'all. And then here's how they break down to pack up. And I mean, obviously you wouldn't have to use all the pieces, and I might, when I actually build one, have a little different variety. I had a different technique that I'd used before, but it wasn't as neat and clean as this PVC concept. For instance, instead of the hanging rack here, and I'll make sure I'll have a little old board that'll sit across right here, kind of a little bedside table with the hanging stuff up above it. But that's enough of that. That's part of trying to live comfortably at the Jamboree. All right, Alan, you can unshare that one now.
All right.
All right. So one of the things, of course, is our training. I trust everybody's moving along well with that training. I have done the mental health first aid. And then I learned that the listening ear group that's part of, they're a much smaller group than we are. They're part of the mental health team. They'll be located near Base Camp Medical. They actually were going through a course called psychological first aid, which is a totally independent learning course versus a class course like our mental health first aid, which I think was good, by the way. But I went ahead and took their training also just to see what it's like. And frankly, I think the one we're doing I like it better. It's more intended for everyday things that might come up and everything we need to watch for. Whereas the psychological first aid training is really more for, I'll call mass incidents, large things that might pop up, somewhat like a critical incident type thing. But obviously could be applied at other times. But, it's the type of thing that would be useful, by the way, for those of you who serve as community chaplains and may get involved in disaster recovery efforts after a flood or tornado or hurricane down our way. For those types of settings, that is good training. It is also does not cost anything unless you want a certificate that says, yes, you did it. And in it, I think it's $40 to actually have a certificate. So you say you're certified. But anyhow, that's an opportunity. And I do want to thank Jess Speaker he let us know that he had been trained in critical incident stress management. We will have a critical incident response team at the Jamboree working with mental health. And Alan, you may help remember, or those on the call, I don't recall that anyone else, and I don't remember anyone else saying that they had that training. Am I correct about that? Has anybody else had the critical incident stress management
training? I see a hand from Joe Black.
Oh, Joe. Okay. And Joe. All right. Very good, Joe. That's right. I do remember seeing that. And Jess, was I correct that you had also had that training? No, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Joe Black then. Y'all excuse me. I'm trying to learn a lot of new different faces and names. And so it was Joe Black. And so Joe, we have given your name. I'll go back and make sure I gave him the right name. So Joe, they'll ask you to serve on that principal incident response team. That is what you might call an ad hoc need. Hopefully it's not going to be a need, but we have to deal with the reality that there may be a critical incident that occurs at the Jamboree. And if so, we'll try to make sure it occurs in the evening, Joe, when you're more available to help with that. But for that type of thing, as Joe had indicated, he'd probably be able to leave his other duties and be able to come help in that regard.
Ed,
Yes.
we need to make sure we get those names to mental health, because they have their own team, and we need to be able to probably sometime early on meet all together so we can see each other and kind of go through what logistics are about.
Absolutely. Yes. So Joe, be ready for that. There'll be a time when you and I and Jeff will need to meet with the rest of that critical incident stress management team fairly soon after we get to the Jamboree, the morning of the 18th or something like that. We'll probably let mental health set that time. So just and we may need to do it in the evening though because of your program duties. But maybe the evening of the 17th after supper or something would be a good time. And so if you'll, Jeff, if you'll help me remember that might be a good time for us to try to get with the rest of that team. And I am going to try to do a refresher on that. Any other issues with the training? Several of you have getting the youth on youth stuff done. Anybody have any issues moving along getting the training done? All right, well, good. That was another item that I had on my list to make sure that we talked about. In fact, that generally covers my items. Some of you had some questions about the separate faith worship services on the weekend of the 23rd. We're still learning more about that and where that can be. And Aaron Stockwell, I do have an update for you on that for the Unitarian Universalist, and I'll get with you maybe by call or respond to an email further. But yes, do plan on being able to do that on the 23rd. On the evening, I think you want to do it on the evening of the 23rd at the Unitarian Universalist. And normally the program teams and the folks working in your faith group areas, program areas would be planning those services on the 23rd, but certainly you would generally would expect that you would be available to assist with those services for the various faith groups. All right. Okay, let's go to Alan. I'm sorry. Do you have any specific logistic items or other items that you need to cover with the group before we go kind of to an open forum time?
Yeah, let me do that. First of all, the numbers that I sent you today, those are actually back to February. So at that time, our total registration was a little over 14,000. But I found it real interesting when we keep hearing voices from national at times that kind of pushes down the chaplaincy concerns. We had 11,000 that expressed a religious preference out of that 14,000. So truly religious concerns are still very much a part of our scouting program. I will say that the bulk of those that did not express a preference were from among the scouts. So that may be talking to the generational change that is coming. The youth on youth training, if you were not able to complete that on the 9th, don't forget that there is one more class available on the 25th. A couple of you have contacted me that you are not going to be available to do either of those, and it might not be workable for you to do it through your council. I know some of you have also done it through your council. So there are going to be two other options. One is that once I know who on the team still needs the training, I am a qualified instructor for it, and so We'll try to coordinate a date when the most of us are available for it, sometime between now and Jamboree, and do that. If you still are not able to be a part of that class, then on Sunday evening, when we arrive for the beginning of Jamboree, and likewise on the first evening for those who are coming for the second week only, they will offer a class at the Jamboree. Our preference is that you don't have to do that. We'd rather you be trained ahead of time so that you don't have that as one more thing you're trying to deal with as you're walking in the door and getting settled. So keep an eye out for an email. Well, after this week, make sure once you get your card, send me your card, so that way I know who still is in need of the training, and then I'll reach out to you. One of the other, well, two other projects I'm still working on is updating the directory. So if you've looked at the directory recently and said, hey, it looks like I haven't done any changes, you're right. Parish ministry has kind of jumped onto my bandwagon from time to time, just like it does for many of you. But I promise I will get to it. If you have not sent me your picture yet, please do. If you have not completed the bio yet, please do. That way I will have all the information once I sit down to just do it. And if you don't, then I will send you another note that says, hey, I haven't gotten your stuff yet. The other project that I'm working on is updating the chaplain handbook that we've done each year. I'm probably 2/3 of the way through updating that to make sure information is current. Once I have that done, we'll send it out to everyone. It'll still be considered in draft form at that point. So if you see something that you've got a question about, or if you see some piece of information that you're still not sure what the answer is, send me an email and we'll figure that out from there. Okay, I just read the note in the chat before I went on. Ted, the other thing that we'll need to set up is probably one more meeting for this group. We are 57 days away from the scouts arriving, so probably only one more meeting of the whole group between now and then would be necessary, unless something major comes up. So I think we're at the point we can start opening up for questions. The youth on youth training is 1.5 hours to answer Senek's question in the chat.
I have something I need to say about our relationship with mental health and with medical. I was on their Zoom meeting last night, and there was some kind of understanding among some of them that chaplains are just from 9 to 5 each day. That's the only way they can be contacted. And I corrected that and said that we're 24/7. There'll always be a chaplain available in every area. Mental health and medical both want to have at least some list of a chaplain to call all the time. If they, anytime they get into a crisis situation and need a chaplain, they can post it in their clinic so that they'll know who to call. So I don't know if we're going to have rotating on call or whatever, but we need to provide them with that. And the individual needs to know that they're going to probably be called in the evening if needed.
Yeah, typically the base camp, for the base camp medical facilities, what we've done in the past is the base camp chaplaincy coordinator sets up a schedule of the chaplains to serve there. They would also provide somebody to be available for an overnight emergency if needed. In terms of the camp hospital, we would have that come to Ted or I.
Okay.
And Jeff, the way that's done, and we have done that in the past, that I think has worked well, and our base camp coordinators will be urged to do this, and that is both typically the base camp medical facility, as you enter in the triage room, where you would first present with any kind of medical issue. There's usually a whiteboard that says the doctor on call, nurse on call, and we go in there and put the chaplain on duty goes in there you know, when his time starts and erases the prior person's chaplain's name and puts his name on there. He checks in, says any needs, gets his name on there and phone number. And so the base camp medical facility will have that contact point. Now, as I understand, the mental health base camp has a cubicle inside that base camp medical facility. At least that's how they've worked it in the past. And so I don't know if they need to write it down in a separate place for them, or if they can step around to the front door and see who the chaplain is on call.
No, well, I mean, I think that would work. Number one, we need to make sure that the base camp chaplains know that somebody has to take responsibility for that each day. And second,
Absolutely,
make sure that medical and mental health are in communication to know where to look. And possibly we might need it also for the Jambo Medical, the big hospital. In case if something happens there overnight, they need a chaplain over there. We need to have a place where they can look and who to call that can come over to their area too.
Yeah, for the main hospital would have that come to Teterai.
Well, then again, just as long as y'all know that, because the worst thing that can happen, I've seen it happen before, is they call and no one answers. And so we just need to make sure that we have somebody that's available, because they have made a commitment to themselves, doctors and counselors, that there's always going to be somebody on call and can come in a moment's notice. So we need to be able to do the same thing.
What'll happen is we'll have two deep calling, and you'll have two names. There'll be someone that will be assigned for the particular hour, but also ultimately the base camp chaplain, base camp coordinator will be the follow-up of it. Or if he's not available, there'll be someone else assigned. So you're going to be covered.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. I just want to make sure that it doesn't slip through the cracks.
Well, it's what we've done in the past. It's been our history, and we've worked with medical.
And it is in our handbook. It's been in our directions all along that's one of the primary responsibilities of the base camp chaplaincy coordinator, to set that up. Well, but I can provide the roster of who the chaplains are for each base camp with their contact information, so that's already pre-printed.
Okay, but they're concerned that some of those on the call were at the last two jamborees. That's what they thought. The chaplain wasn't available at certain times. And so evidently it's something we need to communicate very clearly with them.
I can speak for base camp D, and a chaplain was available all the time. We never had a time in which a chaplain was not available.
Well,
Jeff,
I'm not saying that that's not true. What I'm saying is communication is key. So we just need to very early on, while we're all there, or either before then, if you want me to send the list out to everybody, I don't care. But we just need to make it very clear that this is what we do and this is who you contact. Because just because we did it before, if somebody said it wasn't there before and they don't know what to do, the difference we're there or not.
Jeff, I suspect that probably goes back to the days when we had Jamboree issued telephones rather than all using our own personal phones. And so there may have been an evening when that phone either did not get passed on properly or didn't get charged. I know for 2017, I was carrying the headquarters phone all night, every night, and it never rang. So,
which is a good thing. I mean, I don't mind that. The problem is when it rings and you need somebody, we just need to make sure the chaplain can be available.
Well, I will say this: at 2019 Jamboree, and again, I'm not sure where they're coming from with those comments. I was the liaison between chaplaincy and mental health, and I never had anyone indicate that they were not able to get hold of a chaplain, anybody in mental health, when they needed one. Okay. So I'm not exactly sure where that's coming from.
Well, again,
we'll make sure.
Yep.
Yeah. You're right. Communication is a key to most everything. We've always got to stay in good communication on everything. But and Terry's right. And Terry and David know that one of their roles as those base camp coordinators is to make sure we have that coverage, and the medical folks, whether it's mental health or otherwise, know who to call. And Joe Powers, I know you're listening also for up at Alpha and Bravo. So I don't see Thomas on tonight, but he's familiar with that process also. But yes, thank you, Jeff. You're right. We need to make sure they know and that everybody communicates. Good point, though. What are other issues, other items?
Let me ask a arrival logistics question. I am going to be flying in and I've paid my pound of flesh to TMS to get me from the airport to the Ruby Center. I'm assuming that there's going to be transportation available from the Ruby Center to the base camp, and then on departure day from the base camp back to Ruby Center to where I can once again join forces with TMS.
Yes,
Yeah,
Rich, there would be.
They use school
Yeah.
buses to provide the local transportation where charter buses are what transports you from the airport in.
Okay.
But I'll add this: if you get to Ruby and the school buses that would then transport you to your sub camp running slow and issues like that, you'll have a phone number for Alan and myself, or actually for your base camp coordinator, so that if we need to find one of our chaplaincy vehicles, POVs to run over there and get you and bring you to sub camp, we can. But typically the bus would then, like you said, you get on a school bus and they go to the various sub camps and drop the folks off with their gear.
Thank you. That's what I figured. I just wanted to confirm.
Yep. But
All
as,
right.
as you do any of that process, or even if, as those of you driving and you run into issues at Ruby and something's not working right, and you think Al and I can help, y'all give us a call. We'll see what we can do.
All right, one of the other questions that came up on the chat was charging stations. For those of you in the subcamps, your subcamp headquarters tent will typically have some limited ability to plug in. We've heard rumors that there might be some electrical being provided in some individual tents. I wouldn't count on that. So I know in the past, one of the things I've done is I've got a portable battery that I take with me, and then I plug my phone into that, and then just make sure that gets plugged in periodically.
Another logistic item is, and back to arrival real quickly as I'm scrolling through the chat notes. Scott had a good question in terms of arrival on the 16th about what preference for arrival time. I'll give you this general guideline. If you want to eat one more lunch in the outside world, just come on in right after lunch. If you're ready to start your Jamboree with a Jamboree lunch, kind of get there before lunch. But I wouldn't wait till late in the evening to get there. Make sure you're there by mid-afternoon, and so you catch that school bus and get set up and get your gear in your tent before we go to supper that night. Very good, Scott.
I have a question for you, though. One of my hats at the Jamboree is coordinating the booth for the United Church of Christ, the Disciples of Christ, and the Unitarians. So I'll be driving. I'll be bringing in a number of things for the Duty to God area. Am I going to have any trouble driving to that area, dropping that stuff off, like chairs and tables and that kind of stuff? And then driving to wherever it is that I need to go to drop my gear off?
No, that's not supposed to be any problem at all. In fact, general use of any staff of their vehicle is supposed to be available just for those types of purposes, to get things squared away, get things to program areas, those types of things, until we get to the evening of the 18th. I think immediately after supper on the 18th, all staff personal vehicles, except those few with POV opportunities use, all those staff vehicles would then need to be parked over in the Alpha staff parking areas, and you'll find everybody in your sub camp will be taking their vehicles over at that time also. And so the sub camp then will probably run a little shuttle van. Most of the sub camps, or at least base camps, have a van, a passenger van, have had in the past, presume they would, to shuttle you back from that parking area over there. So that and that's where it would be for your use then on a day off or something like that. But no, there should not supposed to be any problem, Scott, in driving to those areas and delivering all that equipment and everything else.
Ted, are you
That's what they
aware?
promised us.
Ted,
I'm
are
sorry,
you
Terry,
aware-
what?
Are you aware that the POV schedule shows our 5 chaplain assigned vehicles as all being assigned to AB?
No, well, I did see that. And that's because they assigned all staff to AB for some reason. And they're supposed to be getting that resolved. And Becky Mesker, who's chief of those contingent operations issues, is supposed to be getting that squared away. Yes, I did see that. But no, we'll have a chaplain POV for use for Jamboree business during the Jamboree. At each, we'll have one at Piggott, we'll have one at Delta Base Camp, we'll have one at Alpha Bravo Base Camp, and we'll have one at Charlie Base Camp, and I forget where the 5th one is. I'll have to go back on my list and look.
2 at Pickett and 3 at each of the base camps.
Okay.
Well, Jeff is the one you're not remembering.
That's right. Oh yeah, Jeff would be the other one. Yes,
He'll be on and off.
He'd be in and out the Jamboree all the time with his external hospital stuff. And by the way, and y'all need to get to know Jeff. He's a great guy. There may be an occasion where, because of I use the word patient transport, but a participant transport trying to get somebody back or something like that, he may need a second adult to ride with him or some of those things. And particularly if it's somebody from your subcamp, it may be something that one of the chaplains at subcamp would want to do. So everybody needs to get to know Jeff. He does a marvelous work in terms of coordinating with issues at those external hospitals once we've had to send a participant or staffer to an outside hospital. And then hopefully they get to come back to the Jamboree and getting them back. There's usually no problem. Medical transport usually gets them to that outside hospital. It's just sometimes they don't always get them back without our help. I know Jeff has run into that several occasions. Other questions on any other general items?
Yeah, I have one. On the list of different faith members that will be at the Jamboree, is there a database behind that we could get by name and subcamp where they are?
The answer right now is no, but I'm trying.
Okay,
They treat the information very confidentially because all the contact information is there. So I've made a request directly to the registrar, stripping it of most of the personal data to get it down to as narrow of a listing as possible, so that they might be willing to say yes.
yeah, because that would be great for us to be able to contact our different faith members within the subcamps. Otherwise, we're flying blind.
Yeah. Well, and just so you know, the kind of the schedule on getting that database and working with it, the actual troop numbers, which meant where the contingent troops were going to be camping, was not decided and sent out until a week ago Sunday, 2 weeks ago Sunday. I mean, that's the first weekend of May, first Saturday night in May is when that list came out. So the contingent troops themselves didn't even know where they were staying until that time. And so now they know, they all have the troop numbers, and the troop numbers helps them know where that is located. There's a code to that troop number so the point is, the religious data further segregated wasn't helpful until the troops had a spot. Now that's happened, and so maybe Alan can have success with his request. It could happen. Yes,
Yeah.
Bob.
I'm wondering when we will receive the swag. I'm particularly wondering about the duffel and the day backpack. I'm particularly interested in when we would get the duffel and the backpack for the Jamboree.
Well, Bob, I know we had gotten those in the past. I have not heard that we will be getting those this time. I've heard nothing on that. I can ask the question, but given the budget constraints, I'm not sure we will get one.
Okay, well, if necessary, I can use the ones from past jamborees, but
Absolutely, yeah.
just
Yeah,
wanting to know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah.
nothing on that either. I mean, so
Particularly the
I'm pretty
day,
sure there isn't any such.
particularly the day packs for the last World Jamboree or National Jamboree, I forget which, were very nice little day packs, lightweight and very comfortable. Those are great, but I have a suspicion we will not be seeing those. So yeah, you want to find your best, most comfortable, most usable one and use it. The other key to that tells me that that's the case is that I know in the contingent services store for stuff, there was a backpack that you could buy that said contingent services on it. We haven't tried to locate one for chaplains. Most of it, branding one is most of us have, hopefully would have one that we could, a day pack that we could use. And of course, some folks prefer, rather than the travel bag, particularly driving, prefer the larger plastic foot lockers. Those seem to work well for the tents, inside the tents, give you a little more rigidity to your storage, depending on this, plus if you want to do shelving or whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't count on those.
You might also want to check with your council to see, if you're wanting to order one, you might be able to order one that would match your council contingent. I know my council made that offer to any of us that were serving on staff, but that's going to be a purchase one.
Speaking of purchase stuff, hopefully everybody got to the website for our chaplaincy stuff, extra patches, extra neckerchiefs, hats, all that kind of stuff, and have made those orders. Alan, I think we're, if I recall right, we're past the time on making any additional purchases. Is that correct?
Yeah, you might still get lucky because they haven't given me the summary yet. So, and it looks like the site is still active right now. So if you haven't, this is really your last shot.
And make sure I'm recalling correctly what you had advised us, and that is that the items that we're going to give to you through a benefactor to chaplaincy, the 4 patches, the neckerchief, and cash towards your credit if you bought a hat, we'll have that package for you at the Jamboree. Any additionals that you order will be shipped to you ahead of that, before the Jamboree. Is that correct, Alan? Did I say that correctly?
Correct. Yeah. Their goal is to have everything shipped by the end of June to us. Some of those items have a 4 to 6 week turnaround time in their production process. So that's why we had to kind of set the deadlines the way we did.
Yeah. And of course, also, the Scout store, scoutstuff.org wants to sell you a bunch of Jamboree stuff. I think our chaplain stuff is pretty good and usable for most of what I need. But obviously, when you registered initially, you got one Jamboree pack sent to you in the mail in an envelope. When you paid your full fee, you'll get a second pack sent to you. Right now on that Jamboree stuff site, and you can order nameplates there. They're not showing any of these small patches, but I think it's because they are waiting on another shipment to come in. But they have a Jamboree backpacks. They've got Jamboree t-shirts. They've got, all sorts of Jamboree staff belt buckles. I mean, they'll take your money just about any way you want to give it to them. They're using that obviously to raise money to try to cover the budget, help cover the budget for the Jamboree. So those things are available also. The nameplates will ship later than the other items because obviously those are custom made. But I got the couple of t-shirts that I ordered for my grandson. He's serving on staff, and those came in. Those were delivered to the house today, and I think a Jamboree staff hat he wanted. So. All right.
There is still time to order program and operations team branded items. The operations team shuts down this week on the 25th. The program team site shuts down next week on June 2nd.
Okay. Yep. Lots of opportunity to spend money. All right. What else?
All right, yes, you will receive 4 patches, the pocket patches. You'll receive 1 back patch. You'll receive a neckerchief. And then you purchase the hat, whichever style of the 2 hats you want. We'll hand you $16 toward that purchase. Anything else you want to buy, that's up to you.
That may be a problem for me because I chose not to buy a hat because we were informed that we would receive one.
Not by us, you weren't told that.
Well,
We've
I'm
been-
somebody, and I went
Yeah.
to, and I tried to order one. I tried to get the small to medium. They said that they were not available.
From the chaplaincy store?
From the chaplaincy store, yeah.
Which style hat were you trying to order?
Yeah, the white one. I only saw one.
Well, there's a brim hat and there's a twill cap.
It
There's
was a,
baseball
it
cap.
was a brim hat. I'm sorry.
Okay.
They were out. They're out.
Well, that's true because they will custom order them in to meet our, but they still should have taken an order.
Not for the
Well,
hat, it didn't.
I tried to place an order for the brim hat and they would not accept it.
Same here.
All right.
I see Don's got to leave. Don, thanks for being on. And yes, Father Scenic, just to confirm, there will be 1 free neckerchief that we will have for you at the Jamboree. A neckerchief, the 4 pocket patches, and then a kind of a reimbursement for $16 of your hat cost.
It might be
Alan's
helpful
still-
again, Ted, to remind people, I had a couple of chaplains ask me about what we wear most days, and I indicated that, obviously for special occasions, we wear the Class A's, and it may be for your sub-camp meeting or base camp meeting, you may have a Class A, but most of the time we're in Class B's. As long as you've got some other identification, either a hat and certainly a name tag. And the neckerchief is also distinctive, as I understand it. So that's
Yeah.
often
In
worn.
fact, our intent is that the neckerchief be the key identification item. That's why we made sure and make sure everybody was going to get one free of charge. We want that to be the key identification item. A neckerchief is not normally worn with the activity uniform, what you're calling Class B. But in this case, the neckerchief would be wear it with your T-shirt or a other type of scouting shirt of some type, activity shirt. And what many of us have done in the past, have the neckerchief and instead of a slide, do the friendship knot and have that name tag then on the front of that neckerchief. And that way it's all one piece so that you slip it on every morning when you head out and take it off every evening you get in. But in terms of times when you would wear the field uniform, what you're calling Class A, that guidance will come to you from your sub-camp chief. That would be a sub-camp kind of, I guess, uniformity about when he would need those worn, he or she would need those worn. And again, it'd probably be pretty rare. I have known some that, for the evening meals would always do it, but that was kind of rare. Dress for dinner, if you will, but some of that depended a lot on the weather.
All right, I just tried and the shopping cart seems to be working fine for the brim hat. So I don't know what the situation was on the day you tried to order. So I would suggest try to order again. If it still doesn't go through, send me an email with what you're looking for and I'll see if I can put it onto the bulk order.
Okay, I will try. I was looking for a small to medium. I don't know what the large to extra large is. And I don't have a.
Well, I just selected small to medium and it's not giving me any errors back. It's allowing me to go to checkout with no problem.
Okay. Well, I'll try again.
Hey, Ted, this is Greg Simmons. I have a question for you real quick.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
On your Class A uniform that you wear, do you put a troop number on yours? Do you put a contingency number? Or do you just leave that blank?
I do not typically on the field uniform, which would have a spot for obviously. I've even left my traditional council strip on rather than having to sew on a Jamboree council strip for my council. Your typical position patch, it's nice if you don't normally serve in a chaplain spot and change it out to chaplain, which I would typically do for summer camp. Anyway,
I bought 4 brand new uniforms just to have specifically for that. And so I went ahead and bought the 4 chaplain's patches to go on it. I'm just going to use my normal council strip, although they do have some Jamboree ones. I'm just going to use the normal one. But I guess the plan was just to leave the troop blank.
Yeah, if you haven't already sewn those on, if the shirt does not already have troop numbers on it, I think for the Jamboree, it'd be best just to leave those off. And that way, they get the general sense that you're a general chaplain rather than a specific for a troop.
On the
great
contingency, on the Jambo contingency patch, I actually placed an order and I asked them to put D4 because that's the sub camp that I'll be working with under Terrian Group. And they sent me an email back and said that, the contingency has to be a 4-digit number and everything else. They wouldn't do a custom D on there. So since they took that back, I was just going to go with blank.
Okay.
Yeah, some past Jamborees, they did do a staff troop number, but they didn't this time.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
And that staff troop number never made sense anyway. So
yeah,
it was.
Yeah, I thought about making one up like 4,400 or something like that, and I thought, I'll just leave it blank. It's not worth it. That's all I have. Thanks, guys.
Oh, you're certainly welcome.
As long as you don't make the number 666.
That is funny. That is funny.
So holding the chaplain round patch on the sleeve is certainly optional. In fact, if you don't already have one on there and have the opportunity to put a position patch on your field uniform, you could certainly put one of our chaplain patches for the Jamboree itself would be acceptable there, or just a regular chaplain patch. Either way. Frankly, I found that at Jamborees, people don't look much at those position patches because they know that's just our typical traditional field uniform. And some people deck them out with all the special stuff that their council has made for the Jamboree. And that's kind of your call.
Even in terms of loops, most people tend to wear the shoulder loops that their position normally calls for. Sometimes you'll find folks that will wear Jamboree specific ones.
Yeah, I didn't have any reason not to give the Jamboree all of my money, so I got the Jamboree specific loops.
Okay. All right. Well, I know some folks have other meetings and folks are having to drop off, and that's good. Our hour is up. Let me just thank you for being on this call again. Let me thank you for all the training you're doing. Let me thank you for the praying up we're doing as we get ready for the Jamboree. Any other questions, issues come up, please feel free to email Alan or myself or both, and we'll search down an answer and try to get it to you. Certainly if now no one else is allowed to drop off our roster unless you find a replacement. Okay, we haven't lost anybody in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I pray to God that we will not lose anybody else. And sincerely, I do pray about that because we'll be looking forward to serving with every one of you, and we will need every one of you. So with that, again, thanks, and have a great evening. And Alan will send something else out about other update items as they come about. Thank you so much.